Hey guys, it's me, your boy, back with another video that will make you question why you even clicked on this video to begin with. I had a epiphany this morning. I feel like Dragon Ball Super specifically, just Dragon Ball in general, but Super specifically, has kind of lost the plot a bit too much. And I know, negative Nancy much. But guys, I am just more pessimistic than some other guys, so you are just going to have to endure it for a bit, I guess. But you know, I love you all though. All of the homo on that one, because I think that like 2%, if even that, is actually women that watch my video. The rest is just us nerdy guys, basically. But as many of you probably know by now, I am a huge nostalgia whore who firmly believes that everything used to be much better before in the good old days. And Dragon Ball is not really an exception to that rule either. I think Dragon Ball was amazing, I think Dragon Ball Z was good, and I think Dragon Ball Super was decidedly, well, mediocre on pretty much all fronts, and it really just lacks a lot of, I suppose, substance, if I had to throw a word on it. I didn't mention GT or Daima here, but I thought Daima was way better than Super, and GT was just, well, GT. We all know about GT. But why do I think that Dragon Ball, and specifically Dragon Ball Super, has kind of lost the plot a tiny bit? I've been able to condense it into a couple of main parts, so I will just try to cover most of them in this video. I don't have a really extensive script for this one, so it's probably just going to be me rambling for like half of it at least. So I apologize in advance. But let's start with the first point that I want to cover, which is power ramping, or the increase of strength over the time during the series. This aspect is way worse than it has ever been in Dragon Ball Super, to the point of it just being kind of silly, to be completely honest. And to be honest, Dragon Ball Z was not a saint in terms of making power-ups seem the most realistic at times either. I mean, Ultimate Gohan was a bit of a stretch, let's be honest, but for the most part, each new form was discovered through intense training. It basically took Goku 25 years of training to achieve the level of Super Saiyan, as he was 25 years old during the events of the battle with Frieza on planet Namek. It then took Goku at least 6 more years, factoring in the use of the hyperbolic time chamber here, to achieve Super Saiyan 2. We never see him actually achieving it for the first time, but we know it happened after the defeat of Cell, right? And it took Goku another 7 years to achieve the level of Super Saiyan 3, as he was 38 years old during the fight with Majin Buu. And now if you go by the Daima timeline of events, Goku only takes 1 more year to achieve Super Saiyan 4, but we are looking more so at the Super timeline for today. And I know this is still Z, but it feels more like Super, let's be honest. But Battle of Gods takes place 4 years after the Buu saga, thus making Goku 42 at the time of him obtaining Super Saiyan God. But this is already where some of the problems begin showing their ugly little heads. All of Goku's previous forms were achieved through sheer effort and rigorous training, right? Super Saiyan God's absolutely absurd power boost was kind of just given to Goku through a ritual. He actually did no real work to achieve it for the first time, and it just kind of perma-buffed him even in his base form. And a year later, during the events of Resurrection F, Goku has suddenly pulled the ability to fully master this new God Key out of his ass cheeks by unlocking Super Saiyan Blue. And the same thing goes for Vegeta, by the way. I'm just focusing on Goku here because he is the easiest example to cover, I suppose. And looking even further ahead, he unlocks both Ultra Instinct and Mastered Ultra Instinct in one go, just 4 years, once again factoring the use of the hyperbolic time chamber, after the events of Resurrection F during the Tournament of Power. To summarize, it took Goku 38 entire years of training to reach the apex of Super Saiyan 3 during the Buu saga, and then in Super he just gets perma-buffed through a ritual and reaches Mastered Ultra Instinct in just 8 years, give or take. The increase of power always felt far more natural to me in Z than it ever did in Dragon Ball Super. Super always felt incredibly rushed to me in terms of characters unlocking their new forms. It felt more that they just gave them the power up to make them fight the villain, instead of having them actually, I suppose, work for it in a way. I know that's not entirely true, but it really does give me that feeling. If I had to explain it, it feels like they just get the power up for the sake of getting a power-up. It lacked the feeling of achievement, I guess, that, for example, Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 3 had. It just feels a lot more hollow and, I suppose, shallow the deeper you get into Super, in my opinion at least. once again, just my take. And it's really not just Goku. Vegeta with his Evolution Blue and his Ultra Ego, Gohan with his Beast form, Piccolo with his Power Awakened and Orange forms, Frieza with Golden Frieza and Black Frieza, etc. It all just feels like a bit too big of an ass pull to me, if you know what I mean, right? And it doesn't change the fact that most of those forms are cool as ever living hell though, but I will never forgive them for giving Vegeta the form which requires him to get his ass beaten to get stronger. Like, that has to have been intentional, right? But the biggest offenders here by far are Frieza, Gohan and Piccolo, man. Frieza reaching Golden Frieza by just beating up a grunt for a couple of months and getting to the level of Super Saiyan Blue was already a really big stretch. Like, it was honestly pretty ass looking back at it. Because if beating Tagoma up for a bit made him that much stronger, then beating up Nil on Namek should have given him like at least a 50 million level power boost as well. It makes no sense at all how beating up someone as weak as Tagoma could make Frieza that much stronger. And I suppose we will just have to wait and see what minion he beat up to reach Black Frieza, but I am not very optimistic, right? But then again, Gohan pulling Beast out of his stinky ass cheeks just because Piccolo got hurt was such a painfully, I suppose, obvious turn of events as well, I guess. Like, I get that Hybrid Saiyans have more potential in the series, like that's a fact, but come on, man. Just randomly popping a form that makes him on par with Goku and Vegeta, being completely honest, that doesn't seem to be very well written, if you ask me, right? I don't know what you guys think about it, but I think that Beast looks cool. I have some design issues with the form, but in general, I don't hate the idea of Gohan having his own form, but the way he got it though, not the biggest fan. But then we get to Piccolo. Oh, Piccolo, how they have massacred my boy. How dare they make Piccolo wish for a power-up, which is already so massively out of character, and how dare they make Shenron, who is as powerful as Dende by the way, give Piccolo a little bit extra, which just makes him as strong as Goku and Vegeta. Absolute fucking lazy writing right there. And don't even get me started on the tragedy that is Gas and Granola later on in the manga of Dragon Ball Super. But it does make a good segue into another point I wanted to cover today. Characters seem to act very out of character, like almost as if they just forgot who they were completely. Going back to Piccolo, you know, the guy who always trains by himself and didn't even finish his training in a hyperbolic time chamber, suddenly wishing for a power-up is one big example, but there are others. Goku seemingly dropping several IQ points, Vegeta reverting back to his pretty much pre-Buu Saga self, even after finally admitting that Goku was just straight up better than him. Gohan going from training hard to not giving a fuck every few episodes, like a schizo, like you name it. The entire writing of Super just felt a lot more, what's the word I want to use here? Soulless, I guess, than Z back in the day? It's almost like they kind of lost the plot, haha, video title, haha. But to be fair, maybe that is also a byproduct of me growing older and my taste simply changing. If 14-year-old me watched Super blindly, he might have a completely different take on this than the current me. But there is one more thing that I want to quickly cover here. The entire plot of Super has very few unique things, and I don't necessarily mean the specific sagas, even though some of them are not very creative, if you look back at what Dragon Ball has already done, but more so the characters themselves. For example, Universe 6 is just a carbon copy of Universe 7, they could have at least done something with the races, I suppose. Like, I know it's a twin universe, but it just feels like, I don't know, it feels too much of a copy to me. And Universe 3 is basically the Machine Mutants from GT, like they have literally just copied GT there. Several designs of fighters in the Tournament of Power are also clearly ripped from previous Dragon Ball installments and, you know, so on. But let me give you a couple of more examples here, which I personally feel like kind of just recycled ideas from Dragon Ball. Take an assassin who pummels Goku only for Goku to eventually overcome him. This is both hit and literally Mercenary Tao. And another one here, an evil villain who destroys the earth and looks just like Goku. This is both Turles and Goku Black. How about another one, a Saiyan who has a unique form which bulks them up and causes them to lose themselves. This is Kill, Z Broly and Super Broly. This is just straight up the same character pretty much 3 times, and obviously like the backstory is different, I know, but for the sake of the argument, it's basically the exact same concept. And even the arcs themselves are kind of rip-offs in a way too. I mean, 2 entire arcs are basically the massively successful World Tournament arcs from Dragon Ball, and they basically palette swapped the Future Trunks arc and changed the androids for an evil Goku. And if you look at the manga, Moro started out so incredibly cool and menacing, but they just turned him into a Cell ripoff in the end, which really sucks if you ask me. And they even ripped Cell off one more time by making his literal copy the villain in the superhero movie. It just feels like they are keeping Dragon Ball going like a zombie maybe, like recycling old stuff and just hoping a shiny new form without any real context will keep people engaged. And you know what, to be fair here, I mean, it is working. Dragon Ball is still a massively popular franchise, but I just do feel like it's losing a bit of its luster maybe, but that's coming from me, who is a massive nostalgia whore, who will always be like, oh, Dragon Ball will always be better than Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball will always be better than Dragon Ball Super. Like, I might not even be the right person to have this discussion with, because I will freely admit that in the case of this subject or this video, I am influenced by nostalgia for sure. Like I said before, if 14-year-old me watched Super for the first time right now without any like of context, he would probably love it way more, but you know, this is not 14-year-old me talking, this is 26-year-old me. And don't get me wrong here, I don't hate Dragon Ball Super at all. Like, I watched it and I found myself enjoying it perfectly fine. But it did just seem a lot more shallow than Dragon Ball Z did to me. It lacked the oomph that the previous installments of Dragon Ball actually had, but again, maybe this is literally just me being a cynical nostalgia whore. But to summarize real quick, I feel like Dragon Ball, and more specifically Dragon Ball Super, have kind of lost the plot along the way. The power-ups don't make a lot of sense to me, the characters feel shallow and completely different from their End of Z selves, and the story is not very creative at all, to be fair. In short, I guess it should simply be better with the resources that they have, I guess. I mean, they have the money, they have the creative talents, but I feel like they're just not making optimal use of them, maybe? Like, I don't know, I don't know. But this has been me yapping your ears off for way too long with my stupid ass complaining. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. As per usual, I truly do appreciate every single viewer that takes the time out of the day to watch my content. It just makes me very happy to know that even a handful of people enjoys the content I produce. So if you would like to see more of my content in the future, please consider clicking the subscribe button and turning on all notifications for my channel. Work hard, study well, and eat and sleep plenty, and I will see you all again in the next video. Peace out.